All right. So we're going to be this evening talking through a series of prayers that are derived from the Tibetan Book of the Dead and the practices around death and dying in Tibetan Buddhism. So, and they're longer than what I would normally use. So first of all, what I'm going to do tonight, rather than take the usual approach, is I'm going to talk through the context and the story about what these are about, and then just pick up some of the highlights out of them, because they're very different from most of the Buddhist practices that most of us are used to. A simple starting premise here is that the principle of the basic practice idea of Tibetan Buddhism is awakening in this lifetime. Most Buddhist practices recognize we're in this for the long haul. They recognize that most practitioners are not going to wake up in this lifetime, but we're preparing to eventually wake up, and many lifetimes, many thousands of lifetimes down the road. Tibetan Buddhism is very much focused on waking up in this very lifetime. Tibetan Buddhism originated several centuries into the Common Era, and Buddhism grew north out of India, and when it landed in Tibet, as it has done pretty much everywhere it's gone, it adapted to the culture of Tibet. And burn practice, which is a native faith tradition in Tibet, is a very old practice, and it is a practice out of which the Dzogchen wisdom practice grows. It is a practice within which there is a long-standing tradition of Buddhas. So I'm not going to pass through what comes out of Buddhism and what comes with burn, but it's a very complicated tradition, and there's a lot of elements that are going to be unfamiliar to those who have not practiced within it. So one of the four instances in the Tibetan tradition is they have a very particular and specific view of rebirth and reincarnation, which is derived from the Bodhisattva tradition, but there is an idea of a tulku, which is a being that can intentionally reincarnate. The Dalai Lama is a tulku. The Dalai Lama once was Avalokiteshvara. Avalokiteshvara died, entered the bardo of death, the Dharmatu, and made an intentional choice, not for release, but to find an appropriate rebirth and to be reborn. And within that tradition, the current Dalai Lama is the 14th Dalai Lama, being the 14th intentional reincarnation. And he has said that he thinks it appropriate for himself not to reincarnate again. So there will be no more Dalai Lamas if he stays true to that. So waking up in this single lifetime can be during our life, or it can be on death before taking on another body. So I'm going to read you a couple of quotes out of a book by Andrew Holacek, who's an author who I really like. So the first is a story. Imagine you're driving home after a spring storm. You come around a corner and witness the most amazing rainbow. It's so dazzling that you pull over to savor the view. You marvel at the radiant display of light and space. It wouldn't even cross your mind to say, I want that. I'm going to buy that rainbow. I'm going to grab it and take it home, because you know there's no thing out there that you could possibly possess. In fact, your realization that the rainbow will soon disappear enhances your appreciation of its beauty. This is how the awakened ones view the world. For them, everything is a rainbow body, which is a more poetic rendering of illusory form. So this teaching in this particular book, Dream of Light, is directed towards seeing everything we encounter in this lifetime as illusory form. everything as dreamlike. We're used to that idea in different words as emptiness, no self, but seeing it as illusory form, seeing it as dreamlike, has a different valence to it to me. So here's another quote. The sage dreams, as in when they fall asleep, right? Dreams, but knows it to be a dream. In the same way, he knows the waking state to be a dream. I'll read that again. The sage dreams, but he knows it to be a dream, in the same way that he or she knows the waking state to be a dream. Established in the state of supreme reality, the sage detachedly witnesses the other three states, waking, dreaming, and dreamless sleep, as pictures superimposed onto it. For the sage, all three states are equally unreal. Most people are unable to comprehend this because for them, the standard of reality is the waking state, whereas for the sage, the standard is reality itself. And these four states are the same four states that are actually talked about in the Sanatana Dharma in Hinduism. And if you read Siddharameshwar, who was the teacher of one of my great teachers, Nisargadatta, who was a self-realized Hindu of the last century, he wrote a book where he navigates these four states. He talks about how to navigate the four states to this fourth awakening state of supreme reality, and recognizing the other three, waking, dreaming, and dreamless sleep, are all pictures superimposed upon it. So the Tibetan practice very sharply focused on recognizing that dreamlike nature, that illusory nature of all of these states. So one of their core practices is dream yoga. And they will intentionally, there are ways that they cultivate becoming lucid in dreaming, and then within the dream recognizing the imaginary nature of that state, but having control within that, and so actually being able to engage in spiritual practices within that state. And they do the same in dreamless sleep, so that in dreamless sleep they will be present. There is 24/7 by 365 awareness. 24/7 by 365 presence. For this to map, there's a concept of the bardos. And one of the poems, one of the prayers that we'll talk about is about the bardos. It's the second one, the inspiration prayer for deliverance from the dangerous pathway of the bardo. Is that the right one? Bear with me. I'm sorry, I may have got the wrong one here. No, that's what it listed in there. It doesn't. I've messed up here. Bear with me. I'll figure this out. Yeah, so it lists them by Buddha family, not by space. So I'm not going to remember them all. I apologize for that, but you'll get the idea. So the bardos, dreaming is a bardo. This is a bardo. We're living in a bardo. Bardo is a liminal space. It is a space between realities. So this waking reality is a liminal state. This is a bardo. There are 6 bardos. The dream state is a bardo. I think that one of them is also the dreamless state. And then the 3 that we are most interested in are the bardo that leads up. Bruce, your screen sharing. Can you unshare, please? The bardo that leads up to dying, So that's when one is becoming aware of death and moving into the phase of death. There is the bardo of death, which is 49 days. And then there is the bardo of becoming, of moving into the next birth. So these are recognized as discrete liminal states. And within that tradition, the dream yoga is an intentional practice to cultivate awareness in those states where we're normally not aware, so that we can be aware in that liminal dharma dhatu, as it's called, this state of reality, but it is lines up with that the bardo of post-death and pre-rebirth, because within that we can escape. So if you wake up in this lifetime, that's great. You maintain awareness when you move into that state, and then you have a choice. If you don't wake up in this lifetime and you move into that state with awareness, then there is the possibility of waking up in that state. So the Tibetan Book of the Dead is a manual, and it's not just the single book that has been translated as the Tibetan Book of the Dead. There's a collection of maybe 11 or 12 texts, which in the aggregate form a body of literature that really is all those practices around death and dying. That is a manual or a textbook whose intention is for us to train ourselves so that we can become aware in that liminal state, and that we can make the choice to step out and avoid a rebirth. So so there's dream yoga, and there's another practice that goes along with it, which is visualizations. And I'm sure most of you are aware of these visualization practices. We've actually read a book on a Wednesday evening where those visualization practices show up. One of the more important ones is the Buddha families, and there are the 5 Buddha families which map to the 5 elements. So you've got Vairocana is white, and it maps to the space element. Amitabha is red, maps to the fire element. It's west, so that's the Pure Land of the West. Amitabha is also the Buddha of perfect practice. They all also line up with one of the skandhas. There's a mapping here of these things across lots of dimensions, but and they map to the different realms. There's the 6 realms, the realms of the gods, the titans, for want of a better word, the humans, animals, hungry ghosts, and the hell realms. So the Buddhas map up, in a sense, to those realms. What happens is somebody enters the bardo of dying. You rally folks around, you call for somebody to come in and pray and help navigate that space, and they will start praying. And it's a prayer. These prayers we'll talk about. They're prayers to encourage and help that person navigate the bardos. So then the person dies, and there's the first section of prayers that are recited, because in that first short period after death, if the person can wake up and realize pretty quickly that what they are and that what they are seeing is not real but is a dream, is illusory, they can make a choice not to stay trapped within that, but to step out of that and wake up, because they're in such a subtle form at that point. So according to the tradition, what happens is when you die, Vairocana shows up. And if you've been strong in your visualization practice, you will recognize Vairocana, and you will recognize that it is simply a projection of mind. And if you're able to recognize it as simply a projection of mind, it has no control over you. And if it has no control over you, you could choose there and then to wake up. And we go on down, and the next step after waking up, if you miss that first opportunity, then the second Buddha family shows up, and then the third, and then the fourth. And with each of these, you have the opportunity to wake up in the God realm, the Titan or Ashura realm, have another human rebirth, and so on. So it's all about having that awareness when you're in the bardo after dying, to make that choice of stepping out, or if you miss that, to have higher levels of rebirth. And if you don't become self-aware as you fall through this cascade, what will eventually happen is you'll end up seeing the womb in front of you, and you'll go kicking and screaming into the womb, and then be kicking and screaming in the womb, right? And you'll have just a birth that just happens. So the prayers are to accompany the individual and encourage them to see this. There's another piece that I didn't say, which is just, it's kind of interesting as an aside, and since I'm talking about this, the tradition says one will encounter first the Buddhas, but then you have these, we've all seen these pictures of wrathful deities. Well, these wrathful deities are actually associated with these same Buddha families, and if you miss all the Buddha exits, the wrathful deities will show up. And they are terrifying, but they are trying to scare you into being aware. They're trying to help you wake up. And they too are projections of mind. So it is all about using your lifetime training of visualization, and including visualization and dream yoga, to become aware in these bardo states. So the prayers, the first one is inspiration prayer, calling on Buddhas and Bodhisattvas for rescue, and this is to be recited to reach out and invite Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to come forward and also share in helping this individual who is going from this world to the other shore, dying without choice, has no friends, is suffering greatly, has no refuge, has no protector, has no allies, etc., etc., etc. So this is early on during the stage of dying to ask for help. Ask everybody we can to come in and help. The second one is the main verse of the six bardos, and this is the one which I had thought alluded to the bardos by name. It doesn't. It alludes to them by Buddha family. So, oh no, it does name them by name. I apologize, it does. So, when the bardo of birth is dawning upon me, I will abandon laziness for which life has no time, etc., etc. When the bardo of dreams is dawning on me, when the bardo of samadhi meditation is dawning on me, when the bardo of the moment before death is dawning, the bardo of the dharmata, which is that from death through the next rebirth, the bardo of becoming dawns on me. So, and then it let my thoughts enter their natural state without distraction. Natural state is the state of awakening. It's the state where there are no distractions. Controlling and transforming dreams and sleep when you're in the dream bardo. Firm practices visualization and completion when in the samadhi bardo. So you're using your practices within those spaces to awaken to reality. So this is a prayer to that person navigating the bardo. And then there's an inspiration prayer for deliverance, which is talking about our tendencies to wander in samsara, on the luminous light path of innate wisdom. May the Vidyadhara warriors go before me, their consorts, and help me cross the bardo's dangerous pathway and bring me to the perfect Buddha state. So it's a prayer asking for help in that journey. And then the last one is asking for protection from fear. So I have found it's a very different tradition from what we're used to. And it requires a leap a big leap in recognizing this idea of rebirth and reincarnation navigating the bardos. What is navigating the bardos isn't actually a thing, but it's ignorance in a sense. It's just simply ignorance that coalesces. And this ignorance encounters projections of mind, and if it sees those projections of mind as they are, which are really just projections of mind, that allows ignorance to dissolve. If it doesn't, then it is kind of trapped by those illusions and calcifies as ignorance and gets more and more solid as this ball of ignorance that descends, and as it continues to coalesce, its ability to escape from coalescing weakens, still there until right at the very end, but its ability to escape weakens until becoming, and the last one is this bardo of becoming, which is the same word as we encounter as the 10th step on the 12-link chain of causation, right before birth. I find this, I don't practice it a great deal, but I find this a very useful approach to practice, directionally. Recognizing the three illusory form states as illusory form states, because they clearly are, and moving in a direction of trying to practice in those states clearly makes sense to me. And then similarly, to the extent awareness can exist here, why not exist in in other liminal states? And it is a great relief. Beth and I, when Beth's dad passed away a few months ago, his ashes came back to our house and they're sitting on Beth's altar, and we both separately, as part of our separate morning practices, knelt in front of that altar and went through these prayers for her father for quite a period of time, and we both found some meaning and relief in that practice. So, as I said, very different from stuff we've done before. Felt to me like the way to approach this, because it is so different, is to talk through context and place this practice in tradition and what we're trying to do with it, rather than focus on just passing the language. So with that, I will take a break, I will stop recording, and we will